Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepwalk Space. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps you've had a long day, or maybe you're simply the kind of person who finds comfort in the gentle rustle of leaves and the quiet wisdom of ancient trees rather than counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. You don't need to do anything now but rest. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow, and your mind grow soft like moss on stone. Because tonight, we're wandering into the forest. Not rushing, not searching, just drifting through the green cathedral of trees, where time moves differently and every leaf holds a secret. We'll explore forests that make their own rain, trees that whisper through underground networks, and canopies so thick they create their own weather. From the Amazon's endless green to the frozen stillness of the boreal, from glowing mushrooms in the dark to trees older than human civilization itself. Some of what you hear may surprise you. Other facts will simply drift by like seeds on the wind, soft and unhurried, settling into your thoughts as you ease toward sleep. And just before we begin, if these quiet explorations help you unwind or give you a peaceful way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, let's begin. The world's largest living organism is a forest fungus hidden beneath the soil. In the Blue Mountains of Oregon, beneath a forest floor that looks ordinary at first glance, something extraordinary sprawls through the earth. It's not a tree, not a colony of plants, but a single fungus. An Armillaria ostoya that has been growing for thousands of years, spreading its pale thread-like filaments through the soil like an invisible net. This organism covers nearly 4 square miles, making it the largest known living thing on Earth. Larger than any whale that ever swam. Larger than the most massive sequoia. Larger even than the Great Barrier Reef. Above ground, you might see a few honey-colored mushrooms sprouting from dead wood, but those are just the fruiting bodies, the tips of something far more immense. The fungus feeds on tree roots, connecting them, sometimes harming them, sometimes helping them communicate. It has been alive since before written language, before the Great Pyramids, quietly threading its way through darkness, cell by cell, year by year. Scientists discovered its true size only recently by analyzing DNA from samples across the forest, finding that what appeared to be many fungi was actually one. It's a reminder that the largest life forms on Earth are not always visible. Sometimes the greatest presence is the quietest, hidden beneath our feet, patient and enduring beyond measure. The Amazon rainforest holds 10% of all known species on Earth. Imagine a place so rich with life that 1 in every 10 species known to science lives there. That place is the Amazon. Stretching across 9 countries in South America, covering more than 2 million square miles, it is not just a forest, but a living encyclopedia of Earth's biodiversity. Walk into the Amazon, and you enter a world layered with life. In the canopy high above, spider monkeys leap between branches while scarlet macaws call out in brilliant flashes of red and blue. In the understory, jaguars move like shadows, their spotted coats blending with dappled light. Poison dart frogs, no bigger than a coin, shimmer in electric blues and yellows, their skin holding toxins potent enough to stop a heart. The rivers threading through the forest are worlds of their own. Pink river dolphins navigate muddy waters, using echolocation to find fish. Piranhas, often misunderstood, play their role in the ecosystem's balance. And beneath the surface, catfish grow to the size of humans, ancient and armored. But it's not just the animals. The Amazon holds more than 16,000 species of trees. That's more tree diversity in a single forest than exists in all of North America. Orchids cling to branches, some blooming only once every few years. Vines, thick as your arm, coil upward, connecting earth to sky. And in the soil, more species of ants live in a single tree than in some entire countries. Scientists estimate that thousands, perhaps millions of species in the Amazon have never been discovered. New insects, new plants, new fungi emerge from its depths every year. The forest is so vast, so dense, that parts of it remain unexplored even now. To walk in the Amazon is to step into the planet's greatest repository of life, where every sound, every shadow, every flicker of movement is part of an intricate web that has been weaving itself for millions of years. The boreal forest stores twice as much carbon as all the world's oil reserves. Stretching like a green crown across the top of the world, the boreal forest wraps around the northern latitudes of Canada, Russia, Scandinavia, and Alaska. It's a landscape of spruce, pine, and larch, where winters are long and dark, and summers brief but luminous. This forest may not have the fame of the Amazon, but it holds a power that shapes the entire planet. Beneath its carpet of trees lies an immense storehouse of carbon, locked away in soil, peat, and permafrost. Scientists estimate that the boreal contains nearly twice as much carbon as all the known oil reserves in the world combined. That carbon has been accumulating for thousands of years. When trees die and fall, the cold climate slows their decay. Mosses and lichens build up in thick layers, creating peat that can be meters deep. In some places, the ground stays frozen year-round, preserving organic matter that would otherwise break down and release its carbon back into the atmosphere. This makes the boreal forest one of Earth's most important climate regulators. It acts like a giant vault, keeping carbon locked away, preventing it from warming the planet. But that vault is beginning to crack. As global temperatures rise, permafrost is melting, fires are becoming more frequent and severe. And when frozen peat thaws, the carbon it has stored for millennia begins to escape, released back into the air as carbon dioxide and methane. The fate of the boreal forest is tied to the fate of the climate. Protecting it means protecting not just trees, but the invisible layer of frozen soil beneath them, the quiet guardian that has been holding back a breath of carbon for longer than human civilization has existed. At night, lying beneath the stars in the boreal forest, you might feel the stillness so deeply it seems the world has paused. But beneath your feet, ancient carbon rests, waiting. And in that waiting lies a story of balance, one that humans are only beginning to understand. The Amazon rainforest produces its own rain through a process that seems almost magical. Most of us think of rain as something that comes from distant oceans, carried by winds and clouds until it falls over land. But the Amazon doesn't wait for rain to arrive. It makes its own. Every day, billions of trees lift water from the soil through their roots, drawing it upward through their trunks and out through tiny pores in their leaves. This process, called transpiration, releases moisture into the air. In the Amazon, so many trees are doing this at once that vast quantities of water vapor rise into the atmosphere, forming thick clouds that drift and gather above the canopy. These clouds eventually break into rain, which falls back onto the forest, soaking the soil, feeding the rivers, and starting the cycle again. Scientists call this a moisture recycling system. And in the Amazon, it's so powerful that it creates its own weather patterns. A single large tree can release hundreds of gallons of water into the air each day. The result is that much of the rain that falls on the Amazon doesn't come from the Atlantic Ocean, but from the forest itself. The trees drink from the ground and rain back onto themselves, sustaining their own existence. Without this cycle, the Amazon would wither. But with it, the forest becomes a self-sustaining engine of life. This atmospheric river, as some scientists call it, doesn't just affect the Amazon. Moisture from the rainforest travels far beyond its borders, influencing weather patterns across South America and even reaching as far as the Midwest of the United States. Farmers in distant lands may owe part of their rainfall to trees they have never seen, growing in a forest thousands of miles away. It's a reminder of how interconnected our world truly is. The breath of one forest becomes the rain of another region. The fate of trees in one place shapes the skies above another. And in this quiet exchange, the Amazon shows us that forests are not just inhabitants of the planet's weather, but creators of it. Some trees communicate through underground fungi in a network scientists call the wood wide web. Beneath the soil of nearly every forest lies a secret, an invisible web of thread-like fungi weaving through the darkness, connecting tree roots in a vast underground network. Scientists call it the wood wide web because it allows trees to share signals and resources in ways that seem almost like communication. These fungal threads, called mycelium, form partnerships with tree roots. The fungi receive sugars from the trees, which they cannot produce themselves. In return, they help the trees absorb water and nutrients from the soil. But the relationship goes deeper than simple exchange. Through this network, trees appear to send messages to one another. A shaded sapling struggling in the understory might receive sugars and nutrients from a larger, healthier tree nearby, channeled through the fungal network. It's as if the older tree is feeding the younger one, giving it a chance to survive until it can reach the light. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can release chemical signals into the network, and neighboring trees respond by boosting their own defenses, producing compounds that make their leaves less appetizing. The warning spreads not through the air alone, but through the soil, carried by fungi from root to root. Some researchers believe certain trees act as mother trees, hubs in the network that support not just their own offspring, but the entire community. These older, larger trees may funnel resources to younger saplings, helping to maintain the health and diversity of the forest. The wood wide web challenges our understanding of what it means to be connected. Trees, rooted in place and seemingly isolated, are actually part of a living, communicating system. What looks like a silent forest is buzzing with exchanges, carried out molecule by molecule beneath the ground. It's not communication in the way humans understand it. Trees don't think or choose in the way we do, but they are responsive, adaptive, and in some deep biological sense, cooperative. The forest, it turns out, is far more alive and interconnected than it seems. And so, as you drift toward sleep tonight, imagine the forest floor beneath your feet. Imagine the threads spreading through the darkness, linking tree to tree in a web of quiet conversation. A network older than language, deeper than sight, holding the forest together in ways we are only beginning to understand. The oldest known trees began growing before the pyramids were built, standing as silent witnesses to nearly all of human history. High in the mountains of California and Nevada, where the air is thin and the wind bites cold, grow trees so ancient that their lifespans stretch back into prehistory. These are the bristlecone pines, twisted and weathered, shaped by centuries of wind and snow. Some of these trees are nearly 5,000 years old. That means they were already ancient when the first pyramids rose in Egypt. They stood when Stonehenge was built. They watched as entire civilizations rose, flourished, and fell into memory. Their secret is not speed, but patience. Bristlecone pines grow incredibly slowly. Even after thousands of years, many stand no taller than a suburban house. Their wood is dense, hard, and filled with resin, making it resistant to rot, insects, and disease. A tree that dies may stand for centuries more, its wood so durable that it barely decays. In the harsh conditions where they grow, high altitude, rocky soil, bitter cold, these trees face constant challenges. But that harshness is also their protection. Few other plants can survive there, so competition is minimal. The lack of moisture means fewer fungi and pests. The bristlecones endure not by thriving, but by surviving, year after year, ring after ring. Scientists study these trees not just for their age, but for what they remember. Each ring in their wood records a year of growth, preserving information about temperature, rainfall, and even volcanic eruptions. By reading these rings, researchers can reconstruct climates from thousands of years ago, long before written records existed. To stand beside a bristlecone pine is to stand beside a living being that has endured across nearly all of recorded history. It was alive when the first cities were founded. It remembers the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the rise and fall of empires. And it continues, quietly growing, one thin ring at a time. These trees teach us something profound, that time moves differently for different forms of life, that endurance is its own kind of strength, and that even in the harshest places, life finds a way not just to survive, but to outlast nearly everything around it. As you close your eyes tonight, think of the bristlecone pines standing alone on their mountain ridges, gnarled and ancient, still reaching toward the sky after 5,000 years. And rest knowing that patience, too, is a form of power. The Amazon may be approaching a point of collapse, a tipping point from which it might not recover. For all its vastness, for all its life, the Amazon rainforest is fragile in ways that are only now becoming clear. Scientists warn that it may be nearing a dangerous threshold, a point beyond which the forest could begin to unravel, transforming into something entirely different. The warning signs are already visible. In recent years, deforestation has accelerated. Trees are cut for timber, burned to clear land for agriculture, or lost to wildfires made worse by drought. Each tree that falls leaves a gap in the canopy, and those gaps let in more sunlight, drying the soil and making fires more likely. But the danger goes deeper than deforestation alone. The Amazon creates much of its own rain, and that process depends on having enough trees to keep the moisture cycle alive. As more forest is lost, less water evaporates into the air. Less water means fewer clouds, which means less rain, and less rain makes it harder for the remaining forest to survive. Scientists believe that if deforestation reaches about 20 to 25% of the Amazon's original area, the entire system could tip into a new state. Instead of rainforest, large portions could become savanna, a drier, more open landscape with scattered trees and grassland. Once that shift begins, it may be impossible to reverse. The consequences would ripple far beyond the Amazon itself. Billions of tons of carbon stored in the forest's trees and soil would be released into the atmosphere, accelerating global warming. Countless species, many still undiscovered, would vanish, and the moisture that the Amazon sends into the atmosphere, feeding rains across South America, would diminish, affecting agriculture, water supplies, and livelihoods for millions of people. Already, parts of the Amazon have crossed a troubling threshold. In some areas, the forest now emits more carbon than it absorbs, a stark reversal of its ancient role as a carbon sink. Fires, droughts, and degradation have weakened it to the point where it can no longer keep pace with the damage. The Amazon stands at a crossroads. The choices made in the next few decades will determine whether it continues as a rainforest or becomes something diminished, something lesser. It's a reminder that even the mightiest ecosystems are not invincible. They depend on balances so delicate that pushing too hard, too fast, can break them forever. But it's also a reminder that the story is not over. Forests, when protected and allowed to recover, can heal. They can regrow, reclaim, and restore themselves. The Amazon's fate is not yet sealed. It hangs in the balance, waiting to see what choices humanity will make. The Congo rainforest holds more carbon than the entire United States emits in a decade, making it one of the planet's most important climate regulators. Second in size only to the Amazon, the Congo Basin rainforest is often overlooked. It doesn't capture the world's imagination the way the Amazon does, but its role in stabilizing the planet is just as immense. Stretching across 6 countries in Central Africa, the Congo rainforest is a world of dense green, slow rivers, and constant humidity. Beneath its canopy lies one of the greatest carbon vaults on Earth. The forest itself, along with its vast peatlands, stores more than 30 billion tons of carbon. To put that in perspective, it's more than the entire United States emits in a decade of burning fossil fuels. Much of this carbon is buried in peat, thick layers of partially decayed plant matter that accumulate in waterlogged soils. In the Congo, some peatlands are many meters deep, and they've been building for thousands of years. Because the peat stays wet and oxygen poor, it decays very slowly, locking carbon away for centuries or even millennia. But rising temperatures and human disturbance threaten to unlock this storehouse. If the peatlands dry, whether from drainage, deforestation, or changing rainfall patterns, the carbon they hold will begin to escape into the atmosphere. The release would be catastrophic, accelerating global warming in ways that would be nearly impossible to reverse. The Congo Basin is also home to extraordinary biodiversity. Forest elephants, gorillas, okapi, and countless other species live here, many of them found nowhere else on Earth. The rivers that flow through the forest are among the least explored in the world, their depths still hiding mysteries. For now, the Congo stands as one of Earth's most powerful protectors, a green fortress quietly holding back the tide of climate change. It doesn't shout its importance. It simply endures, storing carbon, cycling water, and sustaining life in its vast, shadowed depths. As you rest tonight, picture the Congo rainforest, dark and dense, its rivers winding through endless green, its soil holding the breath of ancient plants. And know that somewhere, far from here, that forest is working silently to keep the planet stable. One tree, one patch of peat, one quiet day at a time. The tallest trees on Earth reach higher than a football field is long, their crowns swaying in winds no human can feel from the ground. If you stand at the base of a coastal redwood in California and look up, the tree, just keeps going. These giants, some reaching over 370 feet tall, are the tallest living organisms on Earth. To picture their size, imagine a football field standing on end. The tree rises even higher. Its crown, wrapped in mist and bathed in light far above the forest floor, sways gently in winds that never reach the ground. Up there, entire ecosystems exist. Ferns grow on branches. Salamanders live in pools of water that collect in the crooks of limbs. Moss drapes the bark in thick, soft layers. The redwoods grow in a narrow strip along the Pacific coast of California, where cool ocean fog rolls in almost every day. That fog is vital. The trees drink it directly, pulling moisture from the air through their needles. Without it, they couldn't survive. Despite their immense size, redwoods are surprisingly fragile in one way. Their roots are shallow, often extending only 10 to 12 feet into the soil. To compensate, they spread outward, intertwining with the roots of neighboring trees. In this way, entire groves become connected, holding each other up. A redwood, for all its height, does not stand alone. It stands because it is part of a forest. Walking among redwoods feels like stepping into a living cathedral. The air is cool and damp. Sunlight filters down in soft beams, illuminating patches of fern and moss. The ground is soft underfoot, layered with centuries of fallen needles. And above, so far above, the trees rise into a world you can only imagine. These trees can live for more than 2,000 years. Some of the redwoods standing today were saplings when the Roman Empire was at its height. They have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, endured storms and droughts and fires, and still they stand quiet and patient, reaching always toward the sky. To know that such beings exist, towering and ancient, is to know that there are forces in nature far greater than ourselves. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let that thought settle over you like the cool shade of a redwood grove. Let it remind you that the world is full of wonders too tall to measure, too old to count, and too beautiful to ever fully understand. Redwoods can live for more than 2,000 years, standing through the rise and fall of entire civilizations. The coastal redwoods of California are not only the tallest trees on Earth, but among the longest lived. Some individuals have stood for more than 2 millennia, silently watching centuries of human history unfold beneath their branches. 2,000 years is almost impossible to grasp. It means a tree alive today began growing around the time of Christ. It was already old when the Roman Empire fell. It saw the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and the modern world, all while standing in the same spot, growing one ring at a time. Their longevity comes from several adaptations. The bark of a redwood is thick, sometimes more than a foot deep, and filled with tannins that resist fire, insects, and disease. When fires sweep through the forest, the bark protects the living wood inside. The tree may be scarred, but it survives. Redwoods also have an unusual ability to sprout new growth from their base. If the main trunk is damaged or falls, new shoots can emerge, creating a circle of younger trees around the original stump. These clones share the root system of the parent tree, which can remain alive underground for centuries, even after the visible trunk is gone. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about redwoods is not their individual survival, but how they survive together. Their roots intertwine with those of neighboring trees, creating a network that stabilizes the entire grove. When storms come, the trees hold each other up. When resources are scarce, they may share water and nutrients through their connected roots. In this way, a grove of redwoods becomes more than a collection of individuals. It becomes a single ancient community, bound together by roots and time. Walking among them feels like stepping into a living memory, a place where the past is not gone, but present in every trunk, every branch, every breath of cool, damp air. To rest beneath a redwood is to feel held by something older than nations, older than roads, older than the stories humans tell. And tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself there. Imagine the stillness, the towering trunks rising into mist, the quiet patience of trees that have stood for 2,000 years and will stand for centuries more. Cloud forests drink directly from the sky, capturing moisture from the air itself. High in the mountains, where mist rolls thick over the treetops, there are forests unlike any others. These are cloud forests, places where the air is so saturated with moisture that the trees drink directly from it, pulling water out of the clouds themselves. Cloud forests exist in tropical and subtropical mountains, wrapped in near constant fog. The trees here are covered in mosses, lichens, and epiphytes, plants that grow on branches without touching the soil. Every surface is soft with green. Leaves drip even when no rain falls. The trees have adapted to this environment in remarkable ways. Their leaves and branches are textured, rough, designed to comb moisture from the drifting clouds. As fog moves through the canopy, tiny droplets cling to the bark, to the moss, to the surfaces of leaves. Slowly, they coalesce into larger drops that drip down to the forest floor. This process, called fog drip, is so effective that cloud forests can capture more water than they receive from direct rainfall. In some places, the trees themselves are responsible for maintaining the local water supply. The moisture they collect feeds streams and rivers that flow down the mountain, supporting both ecosystems and human communities below. To walk through a cloud forest is to be inside a living cloud. Visibility is often just a few meters. Everything glistens. The air is cool, fresh, and impossibly clean. Sounds are muffled by the mist, and the world feels smaller, quieter, more intimate. Cloud forests are among the rarest and most fragile ecosystems on Earth. They depend on precise conditions, altitude, humidity, temperature, and if those conditions shift even slightly, the clouds may stop forming. Climate change is already affecting some cloud forests, lifting the cloud layer higher up the mountains and leaving the trees below to dry. But for now, in the places where they still thrive, cloud forests remind us that trees are not passive recipients of weather. They shape it, capture it, and drink from it, pulling life from the air itself. And in doing so, they create worlds where mist and forest are inseparable, where water and wood are one. Some forests glow at night with bioluminescent life, turning the darkness into something magical. Step into certain forests after the sun sets, and you may notice something otherworldly. Tiny points of light scattered across the forest floor, glowing softly in the dark. These are bioluminescent mushrooms, fungi that produce their own light through chemical reactions inside their tissues. The glow is usually a pale green or blue, faint enough that you need darkness to see it, but bright enough to make the forest floor look like a star-lit sky. Scientists believe the light attracts insects, which then spread the fungus's spores, helping it reproduce. It's a quiet strategy, one that has been working for millions of years. But fungi are not the only source of light in the forest. Fireflies add to the spectacle, flashing among the trees in rhythmic patterns. In some forests, especially in Southeast Asia, thousands of fireflies synchronize their flashing, turning entire sections of the forest into a pulsing light show. The effect is mesmerizing, like watching stars blink on and off in perfect unison. For centuries, people have described these glowing forests as enchanted. Folk tales speak of spirits in the woods, of lights that lead travelers astray. But the truth is no less wondrous. What creates the glow is biology, chemistry, evolution working in ways that produce light without heat, a process so efficient that scientists study it for potential applications in medicine and technology. To walk through a forest at night and see the ground shimmer with soft green light is to feel the boundary between science and magic blur. The forest, always full of hidden life during the day, reveals another layer after dark. It's a reminder that even when the sun sets, the forest has ways of shining on its own. And so, as you drift deeper into rest tonight, picture yourself in a dark forest, surrounded by trees. The air is cool, the night is quiet, and scattered across the forest floor, small glowing mushrooms light your way, gentle and unhurried, like stars that have fallen to earth and decided to stay. Some forests burn regularly as part of their natural cycle, renewing themselves through fire. It may seem strange to think of fire as something helpful, something necessary. But in many forests, fire is not a disaster. It's a tool, a force of renewal that has shaped ecosystems for millions of years. In places like North America's pine forests, Australia's eucalyptus groves, and parts of the African savanna, fires sweep through every few years. These flames are not the catastrophic infernos we see in headlines. They are low intensity, fast moving, and essential to the health of the forest. Fire clears away underbrush, dead leaves, and fallen branches that accumulate on the forest floor. Without fire, this material builds up, creating fuel for much larger, more destructive blazes. Regular burning keeps the forest floor open, allowing sunlight to reach the ground and young plants to grow. Some trees have evolved not just to survive fire, but to depend on it. Lodgepole pines, for example, have cones sealed with resin that only open in intense heat. When fire passes through, the cones crack open and release their seeds onto the freshly cleared, ash-enriched soil. Within weeks, new saplings begin to sprout, taking advantage of the open space and nutrients left behind. Other species have thick, fire-resistant bark that protects the living wood inside. Sequoias and redwoods can endure fires that blacken their trunks, but leave them alive. In fact, fire helps these giants by clearing away competing plants and reducing the risk of larger, more damaging fires. Animals, too, have adapted. Some birds follow the smoke, knowing that insects fleeing the flames will be easy to catch. Other creatures burrow underground or retreat to rivers, waiting for the fire to pass. Within days, they return to a changed but thriving landscape. The problem arises when humans disrupt this cycle. For decades, land managers suppressed fires, believing they were protecting forests. But without regular burning, fuel built up. When fires finally did occur, they were catastrophic, hotter, faster, and more destructive than natural fires ever were. Now, scientists and land managers are reintroducing controlled burns, trying to restore the natural rhythm. It's a recognition that fire is not the enemy of the forest. It's part of the forest story, written into the very DNA of the trees. As you rest tonight, imagine a forest after a fire. The ground is blackened, yes, but already green shoots push through the ash. Seeds, dormant for years, awaken, and the forest, rather than ending, begins again. Fires can trigger seeds to sprout, unlocking new life from the ashes. In the aftermath of a forest fire, the ground may look lifeless. Charred trunks stand like dark sentinels. Ash covers the soil. The air smells of smoke. But beneath that surface, something remarkable is happening. Seeds, some of which have waited years or even decades, are beginning to wake. Certain plants have evolved seeds with tough, heat-resistant coatings that only break open under intense temperatures. The lodgepole pine is a classic example. Its cones are sealed with resin, and without fire, they remain closed. But when flames sweep through, the heat melts the resin, and the cones crack open, releasing their seeds onto the freshly burned ground. Other species respond not to heat, but to smoke. Researchers have discovered that specific chemicals in smoke act as signals, telling seeds that conditions are right to germinate. In Australia, many native plants rely on this signal. Without fire, their seeds remain dormant, waiting in the soil. But after a burn, they sprout en masse, carpeting the ground in green within weeks. The timing is perfect. Fire clears away competition, removes thick layers of leaf litter, and releases nutrients into the soil. The ash left behind is rich in minerals. Sunlight, once blocked by the dense canopy, now reaches the ground. For a seedling, these are ideal conditions. The result is that just weeks after a fire, the forest floor can burst into life. Wildflowers bloom in vibrant colors. Grasses push through the ash, and young trees, freed from the shade of their elders, race upward toward the light. This cycle of fire and rebirth has been playing out for millions of years. It's not an accident. It's an adaptation, a strategy that allows forests to renew themselves, clearing out the old to make room for the new. So fire, in its natural rhythm, is not only a force of destruction, it's also a catalyst for creation, a spark that awakens dormant potential and reminds us that even in the ashes, life waits, patient and ready. Certain trees can survive being struck by lightning, their thick bark acting as armor. When lightning rips through a forest, the crack and flare can be terrifying. Trees often bear the brunt of these strikes, and many split or burn. But some survive, and the way they do it is a testament to the resilience built into their very structure. Lightning carries immense electrical energy, often more than 100 million volts. When it strikes a tree, that energy needs somewhere to go. If the tree is full of moisture, the water inside can act as a conductor, allowing the electricity to pass through quickly, often down the outside of the trunk and into the ground. Trees with thick, insulating bark have an advantage. The bark acts as a buffer, protecting the living wood inside from the worst of the heat and energy. Species like oak, pine, and sequoia have bark that can be many inches thick, giving them a better chance of surviving a strike. But even when a tree survives, the evidence remains. Lightning often leaves a scar, a long, spiraling groove burned into the bark. These scars can last for the rest of the tree's life, winding up the trunk like a dark ribbon. Some trees are struck multiple times over the centuries, their trunks marked with overlapping scars that tell stories of storms long past. Remarkably, many trees not only survive these strikes, but continue to grow. The damaged bark heals slowly, forming ridges and knots, and the tree carries on, standing tall, a little scarred, but still alive. For the forest, trees that endure lightning strikes are testaments to resilience. They are reminders that even nature's most powerful forces can be withstood. not through invincibility, but through adaptation. Thick bark, moisture, and the ability to channel energy safely, these are the tools that allow trees to stand tall even after the sky itself has struck them. In the taiga, trees can explode in extreme cold, their trunks splitting like gunfire in the frozen night. The taiga, Earth's largest forest, sweeps across Siberia, Canada, and Scandinavia. It's a landscape of conifers, endless white winters, and temperatures that can plunge below negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In such extremes, even trees can suffer in ways that seem almost violent. The sap inside a tree is mostly water. In the brutal cold of the taiga winter, that water can freeze so rapidly that it expands faster than the tree can withstand. The pressure builds inside the trunk, and suddenly, the tree ruptures. The sound is like a gunshot echoing through the forest. In rare cases, parts of the tree may burst outward, earning the phenomenon its dramatic name: trees exploding in the cold. It doesn't happen often, and most taiga trees have adapted to prevent it. They produce chemicals that act like antifreeze, lowering the freezing point of their sap. They also slow their metabolism in winter, reducing the amount of water in their tissues. But these safeguards are not always enough. When temperatures drop too fast or too far, even the hardiest trees can crack. The exploding trees of the taiga are reminders of just how harsh this biome is. It's a place where survival pushes every living thing to its limits. The trees here are adapted to cold, but they live on the edge, balancing between endurance and breaking. And yet, despite the extremes, life persists. The taiga is home to wolves, bears, lynx, and countless birds. In summer, the forest bursts into brief, brilliant life. Wildflowers bloom, insects swarm, and the trees, those that survived the winter, grow steadily, adding another ring, another year to their quiet testament of resilience. Some forest fires burn underground for years, smoldering hidden from view. Not all fires vanish when the flames die down. In certain forests, particularly in peat-rich soils, fires can smolder underground long after the surface looks calm. These zombie fires creep slowly through layers of carbon-rich peat, burning without flame, producing smoke but little visible fire. They can persist for months, even years. In the Arctic and boreal regions, some of these fires survive the winter, buried under snow, only to re-emerge in spring when conditions warm. They are notoriously difficult to extinguish because water rarely penetrates deeply enough to douse them. And because they burn slowly, they release enormous amounts of carbon into the atmosphere over long periods. The smell of smoke can hang in the air for miles, puzzling residents who see no visible flames. Fire crews may declare an area safe, only to have the fire resurface weeks or months later. These hidden blazes are a reminder of how forests can hold on to destruction, just as they hold on to life, far longer than we realize. Zombie fires are becoming more common as peatlands dry and warm. They represent a feedback loop, where warming temperatures make fires more likely, and the fires release more carbon, which warms the planet further. It's a cycle that, once started, is difficult to break. But even in this, there is a lesson. Forests are not simple. They exist in layers, above ground and below, in cycles of growth and decay, fire and regrowth. And just as life can smolder unseen, so too can it endure, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment to emerge again. Forests can generate their own lightning, fueling storms with moisture released from trees. Forests do not just endure lightning. In some cases, they help create it. As billions of trees release water vapor into the air through transpiration, they feed storm clouds forming above. Within those clouds, particles of ice and water collide, building electrical charges. Dense, humid forests like the Amazon are particularly good at fueling such storms. The sheer volume of moisture rising from the canopy each day is staggering. It cools, condenses, and forms towering thunderheads that can stretch miles into the sky. And within those clouds, lightning is born. The result is that forests, especially tropical ones, can experience thousands of lightning strikes per night. Some researchers have even found that aerosols released by trees, tiny particles of organic compounds, may influence how storm clouds form and how much lightning they produce. In this way, forests are not just passive victims of lightning. They are active players in the creation of the storms that shape them. Each flash across the sky, each crack of thunder, can in part be traced back to the slow, steady work of countless leaves breathing moisture upward. It's a cycle, like so many in the forest. Trees release water, which forms clouds, which produce lightning, which strikes trees. And through it all, the forest endures, adapting, recovering, and continuing the dance between earth and sky. Some forests stay green even during ice ages, surviving in sheltered pockets. During the Great Ice Ages, when glaciers covered much of the northern hemisphere, it might seem that forests would have disappeared entirely. But they didn't. In certain regions, sheltered from the worst cold, isolated groves of evergreen trees managed to survive. These refugia, as scientists call them, were pockets of relative warmth, protected valleys, coastal areas warmed by ocean currents, or southern latitudes where ice never reached. In these places, forests endured, keeping a spark of green alive through millennia of frozen darkness. When the glaciers finally retreated, these surviving forests spread outward again, reseeding vast regions of Earth. The trees we see today in many temperate and boreal forests are descendants of those survivors, carrying genetic lineages that trace back tens of thousands of years. Studying these ancient refugia helps scientists understand how species respond to climate change. It shows that even in the harshest eras, life finds cracks to hold on, keeping a foothold until conditions improve. The persistence of forests through ice ages is proof that resilience is built into the very DNA of trees. And so, as you drift toward sleep, imagine those ancient forests, small, isolated, surrounded by ice, but alive, green beneath gray skies, waiting, patient, for the world to warm again. And when it did, they spread, reclaiming the land, carrying forward a lineage unbroken since before humans walked the earth. There are fossilized forests beneath the Antarctic ice, remnants of a green world long gone. Antarctica, now a realm of ice and snow, was once covered in forests. Over 200 million years ago, before the continent drifted into its frozen isolation, it lay closer to the equator, blanketed in towering trees. Fossil evidence reveals stumps, roots, and even whole petrified trunks preserved beneath layers of rock and ice. Some fossils suggest dense polar forests that endured months of continuous darkness each winter and constant daylight each summer. These were not the forests we know today, but ancient ecosystems filled with ferns, conifers, and plants that have no modern descendants. Today, scientists drill into Antarctic rocks and uncover remnants of this lost world. Impressions of leaves, fossilized wood, and traces of ancient soils. These discoveries show how dramatically Earth's climate and continents have shifted over time. To imagine forests where glaciers now stand is to glimpse a planet always in motion, reshaping itself across millions of years, where even the coldest, emptiest places once teemed with green life. It's a reminder that nothing on Earth is permanent. Not ice, not land, not even the position of continents themselves. The Amazon once flowed backwards, reshaping its forest forever. Today, the Amazon River flows eastward into the Atlantic, carrying more water than any other river on Earth. But millions of years ago, it flowed in the opposite direction, westward, into what is now the Pacific. Geological forces reshaped South America. As the Andes Mountains rose, they blocked the river's path. Over time, the Amazon's flow reversed, creating new floodplains, shifting ecosystems, and altering the forest forever. The reversal transformed how sediments and nutrients moved, feeding the soil that would nurture one of the richest ecosystems on Earth. It also created habitats where countless species evolved. Without that monumental shift, the Amazon rainforest as we know it would not exist. Rivers shape forests, and forests shape rivers, in cycles that span millions of years. Some forests are so wet, rain never reaches the ground, caught instead by layers of leaves above. In certain rainforests, the canopy above is so thick that rainfall rarely touches the soil. Instead, the upper layers of leaves and branches capture nearly all of it, holding water in a suspended world high above, the ground. Epiphytes, plants that grow on trees rather than in soil, thrive here. They draw their moisture straight from intercepted rain and mist. For smaller animals, this canopy becomes a home in itself, complete with streams, pools, and microhabitats that never see the forest floor. Scientists who climb into these upper levels often describe it as stepping into another ecosystem entirely, one that hovers above the main forest like a hidden continent. Down below, the soil may stay dry for days, even while storms rage above. These forests prove that rain doesn't always fall. Sometimes it's caught and cradled long before it ever touches the ground, held in the embrace of leaves and moss, feeding a world that lives entirely in the air. Rainforests can create thunderstorms through the sheer volume of water they release. Thunder rolling over a rainforest may not always come from distant weather systems. In places like the Amazon, the forest itself fuels the storms that drench it. Through transpiration, trees release massive amounts of water vapor into the sky. This rising moisture forms thick clouds that grow heavy and unstable. By afternoon, the buildup often triggers thunderstorms, complete with lightning and booming skies. The scale is staggering. The Amazon alone pumps billions of tons of water into the atmosphere each year, enough to sustain its own weather system. In this way, the rainforest acts not just as a receiver of climate, but as a maker of it, conjuring its own storms from the air. Forests can create their own winds, stirring the air through heat and motion. Wind is usually thought of as a global force, shaped by ocean currents and atmospheric circulation. But forests, especially vast ones, can create their own. As the sun warms the canopy, hot air rises above it, pulling cooler air from surrounding areas inward. This creates small but steady breezes that circulate within and around the forest. Leaves also play a part, their rough surfaces slowing down passing air, creating turbulence that mixes and stirs. Stand in a forest clearing, and you might feel it. A gentle breath, born not from the sea or sky, but from the living machinery of leaves and trunks around you, shaping the movement of air itself. Tropical forests breathe out vast rivers of water vapor that travel thousands of miles. Each day, a single large tropical tree can release hundreds of gallons of water vapor into the air. Multiply this by billions of trees and you have atmospheric rivers flowing invisibly above the canopy. In the Amazon, these vapor streams are so immense they can stretch for thousands of miles, carrying moisture far beyond the forest itself. They help drive rainfall across South America and even influence weather in distant regions. Scientists sometimes describe the Amazon as a giant humidifier, pumping life-giving water into the sky. The trees, rooted in the ground, reach into the air as well, blurring the line between Earth and atmosphere. Their breath, though unseen, is one of the planet's most powerful forces. Certain forests release aerosols that seed distant clouds, linking ecosystems across continents. When forests release water vapor, they also emit tiny particles called aerosols. These come from plant chemicals, soil organisms, and even microorganisms drifting on the breeze. In the sky, aerosols act as seeds around which water droplets can gather, forming clouds. Some of these clouds may eventually drift thousands of miles away before dropping their rain. Aerosols from the Amazon have been traced to influencing rainfall across the Atlantic Ocean. In this way, forests extend their reach far beyond their borders. They don't just create rain for themselves. They play a hand in the water cycle of the world, cloud by cloud, drop by drop, linking distant places through invisible threads of air. The smell of pine trees comes from chemicals that affect climate, influencing the very air we breathe. That sharp, refreshing scent of pine on a cool day isn't just pleasant. It's chemistry at work. Pine trees release organic compounds called terpenes, which give the forest its distinct fragrance. But these molecules do more than smell nice. Once released into the air, terpenes can react with sunlight and other chemicals to form tiny particles that influence cloud formation. By changing the way sunlight interacts with the atmosphere, they can even help cool the climate slightly. To breathe it in is to take part in a cycle that stretches from the soil to the atmosphere, from the comfort of a forest walk to the vast balance of Earth's climate system. It's a reminder that even scents can shape the world. Forests cool entire regions by several degrees through evaporation and shade. Step into a forest on a hot summer day, and the difference is immediate. Shade is part of the reason, but forests cool the air in deeper ways. Through transpiration, trees release water vapor, which absorbs heat as it evaporates. This natural air conditioning can lower local temperatures by several degrees. On a larger scale, vast forests like the Amazon cool entire regions, influencing weather systems and stabilizing climates. Each rustling leaf contributes to the balance, making forests not only green havens, but living machines that ease the planet's fever. Forests help keep the poles frozen, their influence stretching across hemispheres. It may seem strange to link tropical forests with icy poles, but Earth's systems are deeply connected. Moisture and heat released from forests influence atmospheric circulation patterns that stretch across hemispheres. Forests also store massive amounts of carbon, keeping greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. Without this service, polar regions would warm much faster, hastening ice melt. The fate of the poles is tied to the fate of the forests in ways that ripple across the entire planet. Forests influence global wind patterns, steering weather across continents. Forests do not simply stand still beneath the atmosphere. They actively shape its movements. As forests pump water vapor upward, they create pressure differences that drive winds across vast distances. Some scientists believe this effect, called the biotic pump, helps pull moist air inland from the oceans. Without it, many interior regions of continents might dry into deserts. Forests influence the circulation of air, not just locally, but globally, altering jet streams and storm paths. Winds that bring rain to farmlands or steer storms across oceans may owe part of their path to the silent work of trees, swaying leaves in one place, creating ripples in weather thousands of miles away. Some trees release chemicals that affect human moods, lowering stress and improving well-being. If you've ever felt calmer walking among pines, there may be more than imagination at work. Many trees release airborne chemicals called phytoncides, natural compounds that help protect them from insects and disease. When humans breathe these in, studies suggest they can lower stress hormones, reduce blood pressure, and even boost immune activity. This is one reason why forest bathing, a practice that began in Japan, has become a recommended form of therapy. Forest air, then, isn't only oxygen-rich. It carries subtle medicine, shaping our bodies and minds in ways we're only beginning to understand. Forest sounds can reduce human stress hormones, creating measurable calm. Close your eyes in a forest, and sound takes center stage. Wind brushing through leaves, birds calling, insects buzzing, water dripping from branches. Research shows that these natural soundscapes can measurably reduce cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Unlike the unpredictable noise of traffic or machines, forest sounds are patterned and rhythmic, which the brain interprets as safe. Listening to it feels like resetting the mind, a reminder that the simplest medicine can be found not in silence, but in the voices of trees and the lives around them. Forests can change the color of the atmosphere, painting the horizon blue. On a hazy summer afternoon, you might notice a bluish tint over the horizon when looking across a vast forest. That glow isn't an illusion. It's the atmosphere painted by trees. Forests, particularly those filled with pines, release organic compounds that scatter sunlight in specific ways. The scattering shifts the color of the air, giving it a faint blue cast. This effect is so pronounced in the Appalachian Mountains that they're nicknamed the Blue Ridge. Every shimmering ridge, every misty horizon is shaped not just by rock and sky, but by countless leaves releasing invisible chemicals into the air, changing how we perceive the world. The nighttime forest sky can glow with invisible radiation, unseen by human eyes. Step into a forest at night, and the darkness may feel absolute. But above the canopy, the sky can glow faintly, not with visible light, but with radiation invisible to the human eye. Earth's atmosphere naturally emits faint bands of energy known as air glow, caused by chemical reactions high above. To creatures like certain insects and nocturnal animals, these faint emissions may actually be visible, shaping how they navigate and behave. In this way, the night sky above a forest is never truly dark. It hums quietly with energy, a hidden glow that our eyes cannot see, flowing overhead just beyond our perception. Forest air is filled with microscopic particles from trees, invisible messengers of life. Every breath you take in a forest is filled with more than oxygen. The air is thick with microscopic particles released by trees, droplets of water vapor, fragments of organic compounds, even spores and pollen. These particles act as invisible messengers, drifting upward to shape clouds or downward to settle into the soil. Some particles even serve as seeds for raindrops, meaning the very air above a forest helps determine when and where it rains. To breathe forest air is to take in more than molecules. It's to join the living cycle of chemistry and biology that makes the forest a system far bigger than the trees alone. A single teaspoon of forest soil contains billions of organisms, an invisible galaxy beneath our feet. Scoop up a teaspoon of forest soil, and you are holding billions of microscopic organisms. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and tiny nematodes all thrive in the damp darkness, breaking down organic matter and recycling nutrients. Many of these microbes are unknown to science, yet together they form the foundation of the forest's health, feeding trees, shaping soil, and defending roots against disease. Without them, the towering canopy above would collapse. Every step across the soil is a step across an invisible galaxy of life, buzzing with activity too small to see, yet crucial for everything we can. The forest floor breathes carbon in daily rhythms, inhaling and exhaling with the sun. Forests don't just breathe across seasons. They inhale and exhale on daily cycles. At night, when photosynthesis stops, the soil and roots release carbon dioxide. By day, sunlight powers the trees to take that carbon back in. This rhythmic inhale and exhale happens so reliably that scientists can measure time of day in a forest by carbon levels alone. The quiet breathing of soil and leaves, unseen but constant, is the soundless rhythm that underlies every rustle and flicker of light beneath the canopy. Insects may outnumber leaves in some forests, forming the invisible foundation of life. Leaves seem endless in a forest, carpeting the canopy and littering the ground. Yet in some tropical forests, insects actually outnumber them. Scientists estimate that a single hectare of rainforest can contain over 40,000 species of insects, with countless individuals hidden in every layer. This abundance isn't just background noise. They pollinate plants, recycle nutrients, and serve as food for countless other animals. Without insects, the forest would unravel. Their sheer numbers make them the true undercurrent of life, more numerous than leaves, buzzing and crawling in an unseen flood of motion. Some forest plants trap and eat insects, hunting quietly in the understory. Forests are not only filled with insects, they are also home to plants that prey upon them. Carnivorous plants like pitcher plants and sundews lure insects with sweet scents or sticky surfaces. Once caught, the insects are digested with special enzymes, giving the plants a boost of nutrients they can't always get from poor forest soil. These unusual strategies show how competition shapes survival in the dense, shady understory. To see a plant feasting on an insect is to glimpse evolution's creativity, a reminder that even in the quietest corners, drama unfolds between hunter and hunted. Forests harbor viruses we've never discovered, invisible worlds waiting to be explored. Deep within forest soils, in pools of water, and even inside the bodies of animals and insects, viruses thrive in numbers beyond imagination. Many remain unknown to science. Some may play roles in regulating microbial populations, balancing ecosystems in ways we barely understand. Forests are reservoirs of genetic diversity, and viruses are part of that hidden archive. Beneath every leaf and root, unseen forces are at work, shaping the forest in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. The canopy of a rainforest can be as dense as concrete, blocking nearly all light. When you stand in a tropical rainforest, it's easy to feel how much light is filtered above you. The canopy can be so thick that less than 1% of sunlight reaches the forest floor. In some places, the canopy is nearly impenetrable, with overlapping foliage acting like a living ceiling. This shield protects the understory, keeping it cooler and more humid. It also means many plants and animals live their entire lives in the canopy, never descending to the soil. For them, the treetops are the true forest, complete with rivers of vines and platforms of branches. Forest canopies can hold entire miniature worlds, layered ecosystems in the sky. High above the forest floor, a hidden realm thrives. In the canopy, mosses, orchids, and bromeliads cling to branches, creating tiny gardens that collect water in their leaves. These little pools become homes for frogs, insects, and even small crabs. Scientists who climb into these aerial ecosystems often describe them as stepping into another planet. The canopy is so vast that it doubles the surface area of the forest. It is a reminder that forests are not flat, but vertical, rising into the sky and holding as much life above the ground as below. Forest canopies contain more species than the forest floor, a bustling city in the sky. It might seem that most life is at ground level, but the opposite can be true in rainforests. The canopy teems with more species than the forest floor itself. Scientists believe more than half of all rainforest species may live exclusively in the canopy. The diversity is so immense that each square meter could contain more life than an entire meadow elsewhere. For the animals and plants that thrive there, the canopy is a boundless city in the sky, busy, crowded, and rich with resources. Forest floors rarely see more than 1% of sunlight, creating worlds of shadow. Beneath the towering canopy, the forest floor lies in near constant shadow. In dense rainforests, only a fraction of sunlight makes it down through the leaves. This dimness shapes everything that grows and lives there. Plants must adapt to low light. The shadowy environment also makes the floor cooler and more humid, perfect for decomposers like fungi and beetles. The forest floor may feel quiet, but it is alive with motion, a shadowed stage where survival depends on thriving in the absence of light. Trees in dense forests may never see direct sunlight, waiting decades in shade. In crowded forests, competition for sunlight is fierce. Some trees grow straight and fast. Others are less lucky, growing for decades in shadow, never once touched by direct sun. Many shade-tolerant species can wait patiently for years, even centuries. If an older tree falls and a patch of sunlight opens, the waiting sapling suddenly surges upward. This patience is built into the life cycle of the forest, a constant contest for light, where even a fallen tree becomes an opportunity. Some forests are so dark they feel like night at noon, twilight worlds beneath green ceilings. In certain rainforests, the canopy is so thick that the forest floor resembles twilight even at midday. Travelers describe these places as dim, hushed, and otherworldly. In this near-perpetual gloom, animals have evolved extraordinary adaptations. Some frogs and insects glow faintly. The darkness also keeps temperatures cool and humidity high. For the creatures of the deep forest floor, noon and midnight can look nearly the same. Time itself seems slower here, hidden under the constant shade of leaves. Some forests contain ancient human structures still hidden beneath the trees. Forests are not only homes to nature, they also hide traces of human history. In the Amazon, LIDAR scanning has revealed enormous ancient cities buried beneath the trees. In Cambodia, the ruins of Angkor were long swallowed by jungle before being rediscovered. Dense forests can conceal stone temples, forgotten villages, and lost trade routes for centuries. Each new discovery reminds us that the boundaries between human history and wild nature are not as separate as they seem. There are entire ecosystems in forest tree hollows, miniature worlds within wood. A hollow in the trunk of an old tree may look like a simple cavity, but to countless creatures, it is a world of its own. Rainwater collects inside. forming miniature ponds where insects, frogs, and even small crabs live. Birds nest in the sheltered cavities. Microbes thrive in the damp wood. Each hollow becomes a self-contained ecosystem, balancing life in miniature. Even the smallest crevice in a tree can pulse with life, a hidden world nested inside a larger one. Bamboo forests can grow taller than skyscrapers in just weeks, rising at astonishing speed. Bamboo is not a tree, but a grass. Yet in forests where it dominates, it can outpace nearly any plant in growth. Certain species can grow almost a meter in a single day. Within weeks, shoots stretch upward, forming dense groves that tower like green skyscrapers. Walking through a bamboo forest feels unlike any other. The stalks rise straight and tall, creaking in the wind. It's a reminder of the sheer power of life's speed when conditions are just right. Rainforest trees can flower directly on their trunks, decorating the wood with blooms. In most forests, flowers sprout from branches high above. But in rainforests, many trees produce flowers and fruits directly from their trunks, a strategy called cauliflory. This allows animals like monkeys and bats to reach and pollinate them more easily. Some of the rainforest's most iconic plants, like cacao trees, rely on this method. In the rainforest, even the tree trunks are alive with blossoms, turning the forest floor into a garden. The Amazon's trees release more oxygen than all the world's grasslands combined. The Amazon is sometimes called the lungs of the earth. Each day, billions of leaves photosynthesize, splitting carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. This oxygen circulates around the planet. While much is used up again by life in the forest itself, the Amazon's contribution is still immense. Every breath we take is supported by forests and their endless green machinery converting sunlight into the air of life. Forests provide the majority of Earth's oxygen exchange, stabilizing the air we breathe. It is easy to think of oceans as oxygen producers, and they are. But forests play an equally critical role in the planet's oxygen exchange. Through photosynthesis, forests absorb vast amounts of carbon dioxide and release oxygen. At the same time, the organisms living in forests consume oxygen, creating a continuous cycle. Without forests, Earth's oxygen balance would falter. Each inhalation we take is supported by forests, working invisibly, day and night. Some trees store water in their trunks like living reservoirs, surviving drought. In certain forests, survival depends on enduring dry spells. Some trees store water directly inside their trunks, holding thousands of liters. Baobab trees are famous examples, their swollen trunks providing water to animals and even humans. To touch one is to touch a living well, quietly holding water within its fibers. In a way, they are both plants and guardians of water, embodying resilience in landscapes where thirst is constant. Forests store more fresh water than all the world's lakes hidden beneath the soil. When we picture fresh water, we think of lakes and rivers. But forests hold more than both combined. Much is hidden underground, stored in soil and aquifers. Tree roots draw moisture upward, while canopies slow rainfall so it can seep into the ground. This means forests are vital components of the global water cycle. Forests, quietly, are our greatest freshwater banks. Forests help shape the chemistry of the oceans, connecting land and sea. It may seem like forests and oceans are separate worlds, but they are tied through rivers. Nutrients washed from forest soils flow into streams which carry them to seas. Forests also influence how much carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater. To imagine forests and oceans as opposites misses the truth. They are partners, passing invisible messages back and forth. The health of the sea begins in part with the shade of trees. Trees in a forest can change the chemistry of rain, altering it leaf by leaf. Rain falling through a forest canopy is not the same as rain in an open field. As droplets brush against leaves and bark, they pick up chemicals released by trees. When the rain reaches the ground, its chemistry has been altered. This process creates a unique water signature for each forest, flavoring the water that falls upon their roots. Each shower becomes not just weather, but part of the forest's own dialogue with itself. Some forest rivers turn black from leaf chemicals, stained by natural tannins. In parts of the Amazon and other tropical forests, rivers can appear dark, almost like tea. This is not pollution, but tannins, natural chemicals leached from fallen leaves. These black water rivers are low in nutrients but high in clarity. Floating quietly on one feels eerie and calm, as though the forest has dissolved itself into the water. The contrast creates a mosaic of aquatic habitats, each with its own web of life. Forest leaves may hold traces of distant ocean spray, connecting sea and soil. It seems impossible that the sea could reach a forest deep inland, but it does. Tiny salt particles lifted from crashing waves can drift for hundreds of miles on winds. Scientists analyzing leaf surfaces have found traces of ocean salt far from any coast. Every tree leaf may carry, in microscopic form, a reminder of waves that broke on distant shores. The connection is subtle but profound. Leaves in a forest can change color without autumn, shifting hues year-round. In temperate regions, we associate changing leaf colors with autumn. But in tropical forests, leaves can shift hues at any time of year. Young leaves often flush red or orange when they first emerge. Other species change color as signals. This constant turnover of colors is one reason tropical forests look so vibrant. The forest at any moment is alive with quiet bursts of color. Forests influence the migration of global bird populations, guiding travelers across continents. For countless bird species, forests are not just homes, but waypoints on long journeys. Migratory birds use forest habitats as stopovers, resting and feeding during flights that span continents. When forests vanish, entire migratory routes can collapse. To hear the chorus of birds in spring is to hear travelers whose survival depends on forests far beyond our horizon. Their songs connect continents in ways we're only beginning to understand. Forest elephants engineer the structure of African forests, shaping landscapes through movement. In the Congo Basin, forest elephants play a role far larger than their size suggests. As they move through undergrowth, they trample pathways that open space for light. They feed on fruits and carry seeds in their stomachs, depositing them miles away in rich piles. Some seeds can only sprout after passing through an elephant's digestive system. Forest elephants are not just residents of the Congo. They are engineers, sculpting their environment in ways that ripple through entire ecosystems. Some forests are maintained by bats and birds, carrying seeds across vast distances. Forests don't grow themselves alone. Bats feed on fruits at night, then drop seeds across wide distances as they fly. Birds do the same. In some regions, bats are responsible for regenerating more than 90% of new seedlings after disturbances. Without them, many forests would shrink and fragment. Every flutter of wings is part of a larger cycle, where forests and their flying companions co-create the green expanses. Certain birds guide humans to honeycombs deep in forests, partners in the hunt. In parts of Africa, A remarkable partnership exists between people and birds known as greater honey guides. These small birds lead humans directly to wild beehives. The bird calls to attract attention, then flies ahead. Once humans break open the hive and collect honey, the birds feast on the wax left behind. It's a cooperative relationship stretching back thousands of years, proof that the forest is a place of surprising alliances. The Amazon contains more species than any other forest, Earth's grand archive of life. No forest on Earth can match the Amazon in sheer diversity. Spanning over 5.5 million square kilometers, it is home to more than 16,000 tree species. Scientists estimate that 1 in 10 known species on Earth lives there. This concentration of life is so great that a single square kilometer can contain more plant species than all of North America. The Amazon is not just a forest. It is Earth's living library, still being read page by page. Some forests are so remote, they remain almost completely unexplored, blank spaces on our maps. While satellites map nearly every corner of the globe, some forests are so vast and difficult to reach that humans have barely set foot in them. Parts of Papua New Guinea, deep stretches of the Congo, and isolated valleys of the Amazon remain largely untouched. Scientists suspect these places harbor thousands of undiscovered species. These unexplored forests remind us that Earth still holds pockets of mystery, where life continues on its own terms. Some forests grow on floating mats of vegetation, drifting islands of green. In river floodplains and wetlands, entire forests sometimes grow on mats of floating vegetation. These mats form when roots and soil interweave so tightly they create a buoyant surface. Trees and shrubs then sprout on top, turning the mat into a drifting island known as Sud in Africa. To walk on one feels like stepping on soft ground that sways beneath your feet. A forest afloat, alive and wandering. There are forests growing beneath the ocean's surface, kelp forests towering underwater. Forests are not limited to dry land. Under the sea, kelp forests stretch upward from the ocean floor, anchored by root-like holdfasts. These towering algae can grow more than 100 feet tall, forming dense underwater canopies. Fish weave among the fronds. Sea otters hunt for urchins. Though not made of trees, their structure mirrors terrestrial forests so closely that they are considered oceanic equivalents. Some forests rest on active volcano slopes, rebuilding themselves at the edge of fire. In countries like Indonesia, Japan, and Costa Rica, forests grow on the slopes of active volcanoes. These landscapes are fertile with volcanic soil, but threatened by eruptions. The minerals released create some of the richest soils in the world. Plants colonize new lava flows quickly, beginning the process of renewal. These forests are both fragile and fierce, forever rebuilding themselves at the edge of Earth's fire. The Black Forest inspired some of the world's darkest fairy tales, shaping human imagination. Germany's Black Forest is a place of towering pines, deep shadows, and mist. Its atmosphere has long stirred human imagination. The Brothers Grimm drew inspiration from its dense woods when recording folk tales. For centuries, the forest's gloom made it a backdrop for myths of danger and magic. The Black Forest is a reminder that our relationship with forests is not only biological, but cultural. Ancient forests have been preserved in stone for hundreds of millions of years. Long before humans, forests flourished, and in some cases, they left behind fossilized remains. Petrified forests are made of trees turned to stone over millions of years. Walking among them feels like wandering through time, where trunks lie frozen in mid-growth. They are reminders that forests are ancient, spanning epochs. Their roots reach not just into soil, but into the deep history of life itself. Forests are expanding in some parts of the world, quietly reclaiming lost ground. Although deforestation is a global concern, not all forests are shrinking. In parts of Europe, North America, and China, forests are actually expanding. In Europe, centuries-old farmland is slowly being reclaimed by trees. It is a hopeful reminder that ecosystems can recover if given the chance. Forests, though fragile, are also resilient. Some forests are growing where deserts once spread, transforming barren lands. Across parts of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, forests are beginning to sprout where barren lands once stretched. In northern China, millions of trees are being cultivated to halt the spread of the Gobi Desert. These new forests are living proof that deserts are not always destiny. With time and care, even the driest places can bloom with forests once again. The world's rarest forests exist only on tiny islands, biological treasures in isolation. Scattered across the oceans are islands where forests grow nowhere else on Earth. The cloud forests of Hawaii, the dragon blood tree groves of Socotra. These rare habitats are filled with species found nowhere else. To walk among them is to see life that exists in no other place. Forests as rare and delicate as jewels, scattered across the vast ocean. The world's smallest forest can be just a few trees wide, yet still vital. Not all forests are vast expanses. In some places, a cluster of trees just a few dozen meters wide qualifies as a forest. Despite their size, they often harbor surprising biodiversity. These small forests remind us that size is not everything. Even a handful of trees growing together can carry the spirit and function of a forest. Some forests contain species found nowhere else, evolution's unique experiments. Isolation creates uniqueness. Forests, separated by mountains, rivers, or oceans, often harbor species that live in no other place on Earth. Madagascar's forests contain lemurs unlike anything elsewhere. These species are fragile, vulnerable if their habitats are lost. To step into such a forest is to enter a world unique to itself, with species that carry the story of place. Forests can create their own weather forecasts, reading signs invisible to us. Forests are not passive when it comes to weather. They give clues about what is to come. Scientists studying forests have found that patterns in leaf chemistry can signal changes before they arrive. Indigenous communities have long read these signs, knowing which bird calls or tree blooms mean storms are near. In a sense, forests forecast their own weather by responding to subtle shifts in the atmosphere. To walk through a forest is to enter a natural barometer where every sound, smell, and shimmer of leaves holds hints of tomorrow's skies. Forests at night can be louder than cities, alive with unseen voices. When the sun sets, many forests do not fall silent. They come alive with sound. Frogs croak, insects hum, owls call, and mammals rustle in the underbrush. In tropical forests especially, the combined chorus of nocturnal creatures can surpass the volume of busy urban streets. Scientists recording soundscapes at night often find layers upon layers of calls. For humans, the effect can be overwhelming, a reminder that the forest never truly sleeps. Its voice simply shifts. The soundscapes of forests change dramatically from dawn to night, a symphony in constant motion. From the first light of dawn to the stillness of midnight, forests move through sound cycles as rich as any symphony. Morning begins with birdsong. Insects take over as the day warms. Afternoon rains bring a drumbeat of water on leaves. At dusk, frogs begin their chorus. Each layer of life occupies its own time, weaving a continuous soundtrack. To listen across a full day is to hear the heartbeat of the forest. Forests sing with constant insect choruses, the steady pulse of life. In many forests, insects are the true musicians. Cicadas, crickets, and countless other species produce constant choruses. Some cicada species emerge in synchronized waves, filling entire landscapes with deafening song. For humans, they become the defining sound of warm nights in the woods. Without them, the forest would feel strangely empty, stripped of its constant living music. Some forests hold secrets of life's earliest evolution, genetic lineages millions of years old. Certain ancient forests preserve traces of Earth's evolutionary history. Untouched forests hold genetic lineages that stretch back hundreds of millions of years. Cycads, often called living fossils, still grow in tropical forests much as they did when dinosaurs roamed. These remnants link modern ecosystems to prehistoric ones. Forests are not only alive in the present, they are archives of life's deep past. The roots of some forests stretch for miles underground, binding the trees together. Beneath a forest lies a hidden world as vast as the canopy above. Tree roots interlace with one another, creating sprawling networks that can stretch for miles. In mangrove forests, roots extend into rivers and seas. Through this underground web, trees can send sugars, chemical signals, or warnings. It means a forest is not a collection of individuals, but a community connected by living threads underground. Some forest trees produce their own insect repellent, chemical shields in the air. Many trees produce natural chemicals to deter insects from chewing their leaves. Eucalyptus trees release aromatic oils that repel pests. Pines ooze sticky resin that traps insects while releasing sharp scents. These natural repellents are so effective that humans often borrow them. Every breeze that carries the scent of pine is not just fragrance, but a shield, a living defense system. Some trees defend each other from predators, sharing warnings through the air. Trees are not silent victims when grazed by animals. Studies in African savannas have shown that when giraffes start feeding on acacia leaves, the trees release chemicals into the air. Nearby acacias detect these signals and quickly increase the bitter tannins in their leaves. In this way, entire groves coordinate their defenses. The forest behaves like a single organism, responding collectively to maintain balance. Trees in a forest can heal each other, sharing resources through roots. In some forests, trees seem to care for their neighbors. When a tree is damaged, nearby individuals sometimes send sugars and nutrients through underground networks. Even stumps with no leaves have been found alive for centuries, kept nourished by surrounding trees. It suggests that forests prioritize collective health over individual survival. A forest is not just a set of trees. It is a living community where survival is shared. Forests have been called the planet's lungs, but they do much more. Forests are often described as Earth's lungs because they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Yet, their role is far greater. Forests regulate rainfall, stabilize soils, cool the air, and support biodiversity on a staggering scale. To call them lungs captures only one function, when in reality, they are more like the heart, brain, and circulatory system combined. Every forest is not just a collection of trees, but a planetary system in miniature. Some trees can record centuries of climate change in their rings, living archives. Each year, a tree adds a new ring of growth. In dry years, the ring is narrow. In wet years, it grows wide. Over centuries, these rings create a precise record of climate history. Some ancient trees hold more than 1,000 years of climate data inside their trunks. Every trunk is a living timeline, carrying within it the secrets of Earth's shifting climate. Forests influence Earth's climate more than we realize, shaping weather across continents. The role of forests in the global climate extends beyond carbon. They release water vapor which rises and helps form clouds. The chemicals trees emit seed clouds, influencing rainfall thousands of miles away. Forests are not passengers in Earth's climate journey. They are drivers. Their influence stretches across continents, a quiet force holding the rhythms of the planet together. Forests may be cooling the planet more than we thought. Natural air conditioning. Recent studies suggest forests play an even greater role in cooling Earth than once believed. Beyond absorbing carbon, the release of water vapor creates a natural air conditioning effect. Together, these processes may offset more warming than scientists previously estimated. Each tree contributes to a global cooling system. The shade we feel under a tree is just a glimpse of the planetary scale cooling forests provide. Every forest is both ancient and new at the same time, a paradox of time. Forests are paradoxes of time. Some trees may be thousands of years old, while saplings spring up fresh each season. Soil holds remnants of forests that existed millions of years ago, even as new seedlings prepare the canopy of tomorrow. When we walk among trees, we are moving through a continuum of time. A forest is not frozen in history, but always in motion, holding the past while growing the future. Forests still hide mysteries we have yet to discover, frontiers as vast as oceans. Despite centuries of study, forests remain full of secrets. New species are discovered each year, many hiding in plain sight. The way trees communicate, the role of fungi, and the full impact of forests on climate are still only partly understood. In many ways, forests are frontiers as mysterious as deep oceans. Every step beneath their canopies is a step into the unknown. Some forests have trees that bleed red sap, appearing almost alive. In parts of Africa, South America, and Asia, certain trees release sap so vividly red it looks like blood. The most famous is the dragon blood tree, whose crimson resin has been used for medicine and dye for thousands of years. To ancient peoples, these trees seemed alive in a deeper way. What looks strange is, in fact, a tree's way of sealing injuries and defending itself. Some rainforest trees are taller than the Statue of Liberty, towering giants. Deep in the Amazon, rainforest trees have been measured at over 80 meters, making them taller than the Statue of Liberty. These giants rise above the canopy, where only a handful of trees reach such heights. To stand beneath one is to feel the same awe as gazing at a skyscraper. Except this one is alive, ancient, and rooted in the soil of the earth itself. The largest known tree by volume weighs more than a blue whale fleet, a monument of wood. In California's Sierra Nevada stands the General Sherman tree, a giant sequoia that holds the title of the largest known tree by volume. Its trunk alone contains over 1,000 cubic meters of wood, so massive that it outweighs dozens of blue whales combined. Standing before it, humans appear like insects at the base of a mountain. This single tree is a forest unto itself. Bamboo can grow nearly a meter in a day, visible growth in real time. Among the fastest growing plants on Earth, bamboo is a marvel of speed. Some species can shoot upward almost a meter in a single day. This rapid growth allows bamboo forests to regenerate quickly. Its explosive growth is not just a curiosity, but a survival strategy. Watching bamboo grow is watching life accelerate before your eyes. Forests can change entire landscapes over millennia, shaping the very ground. Forests are not passive backdrops. Over time, they reshape the very land they grow on. Roots crack rocks, slowly grinding them into soil. Forests capture rainfall and guide rivers. These transformations happen so slowly they are invisible to human eyes. Yet they mark one of nature's most powerful forces, life itself, shaping the planet. The Amazon River was once a swampy forest, water and trees intertwined. Before it became the massive river system we know today, the Amazon basin was largely a swampy inland forest. Over millions of years, as the Andes rose, the waters broke through, carving the path of the modern Amazon River. The Amazon is not just a river with a forest around it. It is the product of forests and water, shaping one another across a deep time. Some forests are shaped by seasonal floods, becoming amphibious landscapes. In places like the Amazon, forests flood regularly, sometimes rising by several meters for months. Instead of drowning, the trees adapt. These flooded forests become seasonal havens for fish and aquatic animals. These ecosystems reveal how flexible life can be, thriving in cycles that might seem impossible to endure. Forests once covered nearly the entire Earth, a green world. Hundreds of millions of years ago, forests blanketed almost all of Earth's land surface. Vast swamps of giant ferns dominated the Carboniferous period. These global forests played a central role in shaping the planet's atmosphere. But the memory remains. Once, Earth was almost entirely forest, a green world where trees were the rulers of the land. Forests will outlast most human structures, reclaiming all. Cities, monuments, and highways often feel permanent, yet forests quietly remind us of time's true scale. Abandoned buildings are quickly reclaimed by trees, their roots breaking through concrete. Forests move slowly, but their persistence is unmatched. They have outlasted civilizations before, and will likely outlast many of today's creations. Forests remind us that life is both fragile and fierce, vulnerable yet enduring. Forests can burn, wither, or vanish in a single generation. Yet they can also survive ice ages, storms, and the rise and fall of empires. This duality makes forests symbols of both vulnerability and strength. A seedling can be crushed underfoot, yet given time, it can grow into a towering giant. To walk among trees is to feel this paradox, that life is delicate but also indomitable. And so, as we come to the end of our long journey through the forests of Earth, I hope you felt the calm of walking beneath their canopies, even if only in your imagination. From the tallest redwoods reaching skyward, to the hidden fungal webs beneath our feet, to the stories of resilience carried in every ring of every tree, forests remind us how vast, intricate, and enduring life can be. They are at once fragile and fierce, ancient and new, mysterious and familiar. And while we may think of them as distant or wild, the truth is, forests are never far. Every breath of air, every sip of water, every heartbeat owes something to them. They are the living memory of our planet, and also its hope for the future. But before sleep claims you completely, let us wander a little further. There are still so many forest secrets to explore, so many quiet truths waiting in the shade of leaves and the whisper of branches. Forests hold stories not just in their trees, but in every creature, every drop of water, every breath of wind that moves through them. And tonight, we have time to let these stories unfold slowly, gently, like petals opening in the morning light. So settle deeper into your pillow. Let your eyes grow heavier and drift with me a little longer through the green cathedral of the world's forests. Some trees can live for thousands of years without ever producing a single seed. In certain harsh environments, trees focus all their energy on survival rather than reproduction. High in mountains or in nutrient-poor soils, some trees may live for centuries, even millennia, without ever successfully producing seeds. They grow slowly, conserving resources, waiting for conditions that may never come. Their wood becomes incredibly dense, their rings so tight they can barely be counted. These trees are survivors in the purest sense, choosing endurance over legacy. Yet even without offspring, they serve the forest. Their trunks provide shelter, their roots hold soil, their branches break the wind. And when they finally fall, their wood feeds the next generation, returning everything they took from the earth. To be a tree does not always mean to reproduce. Sometimes it simply means to endure, to stand, to be present across centuries, contributing to the forest in ways that have nothing to do with seeds or saplings. In the quiet of a forest, these ancient non-reproducers teach us something profound, that a life can have meaning even without legacy, that presence itself is a kind of gift. Forest mushrooms can form fairy rings that expand for centuries. Walk through certain forests and you may notice mushrooms growing in near-perfect circles, sometimes dozens of feet across. These are fairy rings, and they have captured human imagination for thousands of years. In folklore, they were thought to mark the places where fairies danced, or doorways to other worlds. But the truth, while less magical, is no less remarkable. These rings are created by a single fungus growing outward from a central point. Each year, the mycelium spreads a little further underground, and the mushrooms that fruit above ground mark the edge of this invisible expansion. Some fairy rings are centuries old, growing slowly year after year, expanding outward in patient circles. The oldest known fairy rings are estimated to be over 700 years old, meaning they began growing before the Renaissance, before the printing press, before the discovery of the Americas. They have been spreading quietly and steadily through wars and peace, through the rise and fall of kingdoms, unnoticed by most, but always there. To step inside a fairy ring is to step into a living monument to time, a circle drawn by life, itself across centuries. Some forests contain trees that glow blue under ultraviolet light. If you could see the world in ultraviolet light, as some insects and birds can, forests would look entirely different. Many trees and flowers that appear ordinary in visible light blaze with patterns and colors in UV. These patterns serve as guides for pollinators, showing them where to land, where to find nectar. Some trees produce compounds in their bark that fluoresce under UV, glowing with an eerie blue light that marks them as different, special, chemically unique. Scientists studying these patterns have found that the UV landscape of a forest is like a hidden map, visible only to creatures with the right kind of eyes. It's a reminder that the forest we see is only one version of many forests, each species perceiving it differently. The forest has layers not just of height and depth, but of perception, each layer revealing different truths. The scent of rain in a forest comes partly from bacteria in the soil. That earthy, fresh smell that rises from a forest floor after rain is one of the most distinctive scents in nature. It has a name, petrichor. And while some of that smell comes from plant oils released into the air, much of it comes from bacteria. Specifically, bacteria called actinomycetes, which live in the soil and produce compounds called geosmins. When rain strikes the ground, these compounds are released into the air, creating that characteristic earthy aroma. Humans are extraordinarily sensitive to geosmin. We can detect it at concentrations as low as a few parts per trillion. This sensitivity may have evolved because the smell signals the presence of water, something our ancestors would have needed to find. So when you smell rain in a forest, you're not just smelling water. You're smelling life. Ancient bacteria that have been producing this scent for hundreds of millions of years, long before humans existed to appreciate it. To breathe in that smell is to breathe in the exhalation of the soil itself, the quiet chemical announcement that water has returned. Some forest birds can mimic the sounds of chainsaws and car alarms. In forests that border human settlements, certain birds have begun incorporating human-made sounds into their songs. Lyrebirds in Australia are famous for this, their incredible vocal abilities allowing them to mimic almost anything they hear. Recordings exist of lyrebirds perfectly recreating the sound of chainsaws, car alarms, camera shutters, and even construction equipment. It's both fascinating and unsettling, a reminder of how human activity penetrates even the wildest places. Other species, like parrots and mockingbirds, also pick up human sounds, weaving them into their natural calls. To walk through a forest and hear what sounds like machinery, only to realize it's coming from a bird, is to experience a strange collision of worlds. These mimics are adapting to a changing soundscape, incorporating the new sounds of their environment, just as they would natural calls. But it also raises questions. As forests fill with human noise, what happens to the ancient songs? What gets lost when the soundscape changes? For now, the mimics remind us that birds are listening, always listening, and what we add to the forest doesn't disappear. It becomes part of the chorus. Certain trees drop their leaves not in fall, but in the dry season. In tropical regions where there is no winter, the concept of fall doesn't exist in the temperate sense, but some trees still drop their leaves, timing it not to cold, but to drought. During the dry season, when water becomes scarce, deciduous tropical trees shed their leaves to conserve moisture. The forest floor becomes covered in brown and gold, just as it does in autumn elsewhere. But here, it's not the cold that triggers the change. It's thirst. This dry season leaf drop serves the same purpose as autumn leaf fall: survival. By shedding leaves, trees reduce water loss and can endure months without rain. When the rains return, new leaves burst forth in a matter of days, and the forest greens again. It's a reminder that nature's strategies are universal, but their timing and triggers vary. The same adaptation, shedding leaves, serves different needs in different places. Walking through a tropical forest during dry season feels strangely like autumn, but warmer, quieter, and filled with the anticipation of rain rather than snow. Some forest floors are so thick with moss, they feel like walking on clouds. In certain temperate rainforests, particularly in the Pacific Northwest and parts of New Zealand, moss dominates the forest floor so completely that the ground becomes soft, deep, and almost bouncy underfoot. These mosses can be many inches thick, forming cushions that hold vast amounts of water like sponges. Step on them and your foot sinks slightly, the moss compressing before slowly returning to shape. This moss layer is not just decoration. It's a vital part of the forest ecosystem. It holds moisture, provides habitat for insects and small animals, and slowly breaks down to add nutrients to the soil. Some mosses are so old, so established, that they form their own micro-ecosystems, with tiny forests of even smaller plants growing on their surfaces. To walk through these moss-carpeted forests feels dreamlike, as though the ground itself is alive and breathing. Everything is soft, muffled, gentle. Even sound behaves differently, absorbed by the moss rather than echoing. These are forests where the boundary between earth and plant blurs, where the ground is not solid, but living, growing, changing with every season. Forests contain natural corridors that animals have used for thousands of years. Long before humans built roads, animals created their own pathways through forests. These corridors, worn down by countless generations of feet, hooves, and paws, form invisible highways that crisscross the landscape. Deer paths, bear trails, elephant routes. Each species has its preferred pathways, often following the easiest terrain, the gentlest slopes, the most reliable water sources. Some of these trails have been in use for so long that they've shaped the forest itself, creating gaps in vegetation, compressing soil, even influencing where certain plants grow. Indigenous peoples often discovered and used these animal trails, recognizing them as the most efficient routes through dense forest. Today, many hiking trails follow these same ancient paths, unknowingly tracing the footsteps of countless creatures. To walk these trails is to walk in a procession that stretches back thousands of years, following the wisdom of animals who knew this landscape long before humans gave it names. Some trees can detect when they're being eaten and change their taste. Trees are not passive victims of herbivores. Many species can detect when they're being browsed and respond by changing the chemistry of their leaves. When caterpillars begin chewing on oak leaves, for example, the tree can detect compounds in the caterpillar's saliva. In response, it begins producing tannins and other bitter compounds that make the leaves less palatable and harder to digest. This response can happen remarkably quickly, sometimes within hours. And through the underground fungal network, trees can even warn their neighbors, prompting them to boost their defenses before they're attacked. It's a form of plant intelligence that we're only beginning to understand. Trees sense their environment, respond to threats, and communicate with each other, all without a brain or nervous system. The forest, then, is not a static place, but a dynamic battlefield where chemical warfare plays out constantly, invisibly, in the space between leaf and insect. Certain forest mammals can predict earthquakes days in advance. In forests near earthquake-prone zones, observers have long noted unusual animal behavior before major quakes. Elephants have been seen moving to higher ground days before tsunamis. Birds flee areas hours before tremors begin. Even insects seem to sense something coming. Scientists believe these animals may be detecting subtle changes that precede earthquakes, shifts in electromagnetic fields, releases of gases from the earth, or vibrations too subtle for human senses to pick up. While we still don't fully understand the mechanisms, the evidence is compelling. Animals in forests seem tuned to the earth in ways we are not, able to read signals written in frequencies and wavelengths beyond our perception. For people living near these forests, paying attention to animal behavior has sometimes meant the difference between safety and disaster. The forest, in this sense, becomes a kind of early warning system, its inhabitants sensitive instruments detecting the planet's restlessness. Some trees can clone themselves, creating forests of genetically identical individuals. In certain species, a single tree can spread not through seeds, but through its root system, sending up new shoots that become full-sized trees. The most famous example is Pando, a grove of quaking aspens in Utah. What appears to be a forest of thousands of individual trees is actually a single organism, all connected by one massive root system. Pando is estimated to be over 80,000 years old, making it one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. Similar clonal colonies exist in other species. Some eucalyptus groves in Australia are genetically identical, whole sprouts from the same ancient root system. These forests challenge our concept of what an individual is. Is Pando one tree or many? Is it a forest or an organism? The answer depends on how you define the boundaries of self. And in a way, this mirrors the interconnectedness of all forests, where individual identity blurs into collective existence. Forest streams can run different colors depending on what trees grow nearby. The color of a forest stream isn't just about the rocks it flows over or the depth of the water. It's also influenced by the trees around it. Streams flowing through coniferous forests often carry a slightly amber or tea-colored tint from tannins in pine and spruce needles. Streams in deciduous forests might run clearer, with different chemical signatures from oak and maple. In some places, streams can even change color with the seasons as different leaves fall and different compounds leach into the water. The stream becomes a liquid expression of the forest, carrying its chemistry downstream. Fish and aquatic insects in these streams are adapted to their specific water chemistry, meaning the forest literally shapes life in the water through the compounds it releases. Every stream is a story of the forest it flows through, written in dissolved molecules and subtle hues. Some forest trees can sense the length of days and prepare for winter months in advance. Trees don't have eyes, but they can sense light. Many species can detect not just the presence of light, but the length of days, measuring the gradual shortening of daylight as summer turns to fall. This ability, called photoperiodism, allows trees to prepare for winter long before the first frost. As days shorten, trees begin withdrawing resources from their leaves, breaking down chlorophyll and moving nutrients into their trunks and roots. This is why leaves change color in fall. The green fades as chlorophyll disappears, revealing other pigments that were there all along, yellows and oranges hidden beneath the green. By the time winter arrives, deciduous trees have already prepared, sealing off their leaves and entering dormancy. They read the calendar written in light, responding to signals that have guided them for millions of years. It's a form of awareness that happens without consciousness, a biological clock set by the sun itself. Certain forests smell different in different seasons. Anyone who has spent time in forests knows that each season has its own scent. Spring brings the green, fresh smell of new growth, compounds released by unfurling leaves and warming soil. Summer smells rich and heavy, full of the dense scents of full foliage, flowering plants, and the earthy smell of damp leaf litter. Fall brings the sweet decay of fallen leaves, mixed with the sharper scents of ripening fruits and fungi. Winter, in deciduous forests, smells clean and cold, with little vegetation releasing scent. In coniferous forests, winter air carries the ever-present scent of resin, slightly sharper in the cold. These changing scents are more than pleasant variations. They're chemical signatures of what's happening in the forest, signals of growth, reproduction, decay, and dormancy. To walk the same forest path in different seasons is to experience entirely different places, each with its own olfactory personality. Some trees produce compounds that can influence weather patterns across continents. We've mentioned how forests release particles that seed clouds, but the scale of this influence is even more remarkable than it might first appear. The compounds trees release, particularly in vast forests like the Amazon or the Boreal, don't just affect local weather. They can influence atmospheric patterns thousands of miles away. Aerosols from the Amazon have been detected influencing cloud formation over the Atlantic Ocean. Compounds from Siberian forests affect weather patterns across Asia and even into the Pacific. These forests are not just local weather makers. They're participants in the global atmospheric system, their breath mixing with winds that circle the planet, their chemistry becoming part of clouds that rain on distant continents. It means a tree growing in one place can, through the molecules it releases, contribute to rain that falls on a field an ocean away. The interconnectedness is almost impossible to fully grasp. Forest fires can create their own weather systems, including fire tornadoes. When a forest fire grows large enough and hot enough, it doesn't just respond to weather, it creates it. The intense heat generates powerful updrafts that can form towering pyrocumulus clouds, sometimes called flammagenitus clouds. These clouds can reach heights of 40,000 feet or more, and they can produce lightning, which can start new fires. In some cases, the rotating updrafts can form fire whirls or fire tornadoes, spinning columns of flame that can reach hundreds of feet into the air. These fire-generated weather systems can become self-sustaining, the fire creating conditions that allow it to spread further and burn hotter. They're among the most dangerous and unpredictable aspects of large wildfires. To witness a fire creating its own thunderstorm is to see nature's power at its most raw and terrifying. A reminder that fire is not just a chemical reaction, but a force that can reshape the very air around it. Some forest trees can live for decades without their roots touching soil. In tropical rainforests, some trees begin their lives as epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants. Seeds land in the crook of a branch high in the canopy and sprout there, sending roots down through the air. These aerial roots can dangle for years, sometimes decades, before finally reaching the forest floor. The tree lives all this time without touching soil, drawing moisture from rain and fog, getting nutrients from decomposing plant matter that collects in the branches. Some species, like strangler figs, eventually send enough roots down to surround the host tree, sometimes even killing it and taking its place in the canopy. But the strangler spent years or decades living in the air, suspended between earth and sky. It's another reminder that in forests, especially tropical ones, the normal rules don't always apply. Trees don't need soil to grow. They can begin their lives floating in the canopy, patient, waiting for their roots to find the earth. Forests can absorb the sound of civilization, creating pockets of deep quiet. One of the most striking things about walking deep into a forest is how sound changes. Not just the sounds you hear, but the quality of sound itself. Forests absorb noise. The trunks, the leaves, the undergrowth all act as sound dampeners, absorbing and scattering sound waves. The result is that even loud noises become muffled, softened, less jarring. This is why forests feel so peaceful. They actively reduce the acoustic chaos of the world, creating spaces of quieter, gentler sound. Studies have shown that spending time in these quiet spaces reduces stress and anxiety, lowers blood pressure, and improves mood. The quiet itself is medicine. Not silence, but a gentler soundscape, where bird calls and rustling leaves replace the harsh mechanical noises of human civilization. In a world that's becoming increasingly loud, forests remain as sanctuaries of acoustic peace, places where sound is softened and the nervous system can finally relax. Some trees can sense gravity and always grow upward, even from fallen trunks. When a tree falls but doesn't die, something remarkable happens. Branches that were growing horizontally suddenly sense that their orientation has changed, and they begin growing upward, turning themselves into new vertical trunks. This response to gravity is called gravitropism, and it allows fallen trees to continue growing, sometimes for centuries. In old-growth forests, you can see the results of this process. Fallen trunks with multiple vertical trees growing from them, each one that was once a branch, now a full-sized tree. These nurse logs become ecosystems in themselves, their decaying wood providing nutrients for the new trees growing from them. Eventually, the original trunk rots away completely, leaving a line of trees standing where it once lay, marking its presence long after the wood itself is gone. It's a form of resurrection, the old tree giving birth to new ones in its death, and those new trees sensing, up and growing toward the light, even though they began horizontally. Certain birds create gardens by planting seeds in specific arrangements. Some birds don't just spread seeds randomly. They actually seem to engage in something like gardening, planting seeds in arrangements that benefit them later. Certain species of corvids, the family that includes crows, ravens, and jays, cache seeds for winter, burying them in specific locations. But they don't bury them randomly. Studies suggest they choose locations with good growing conditions, where the seeds are likely to sprout. When the seeds do grow into trees or shrubs, the birds return year after year to harvest the fruits, essentially creating food sources for future generations. It's not quite agriculture, but it's closer than we once thought possible. These bird gardeners shape the forest in subtle ways, influencing where certain plants grow, which species thrive, creating patterns that can last for decades. The forest, then, is not just shaped by random chance, but by the intentional actions of countless creatures, each one a tiny architect, contributing to the whole. Some forests experience total silence in winter, when even the wind seems to stop. In the depths of winter, particularly in boreal forests after heavy snowfall, something extraordinary can happen. Complete silence. The snow absorbs sound. The cold air is still. Many animals are hibernating or have migrated. The birds that remain are quiet. And for moments, sometimes stretching into minutes, the forest falls into absolute silence. It's not the absence of sound exactly, but the absence of any sound at all. No wind in the branches, no creak of wood, no rustle of leaves, nothing. People who have experienced this silence describe it as almost overwhelming, a quiet so profound it has weight and presence. In our modern world, where silence is rare, these moments in winter forests are among the few places true quiet can still be found. And in that silence, something shifts inside. The mind slows, thoughts quiet. For a moment, you become part of the stillness, absorbed into the forest's winter rest. Forests create microclimates that can vary dramatically over short distances. Within a single forest, temperature, humidity, and air movement can vary significantly from one spot to another. A sunny clearing can be 20 degrees warmer than a shaded hollow just meters away. Near a stream, humidity might be 30% higher than on a ridge. In a dense thicket, the air might be nearly still, while just beyond it, wind moves freely through more open spaces. These microclimates create niches for different species. Some plants thrive in the cool, damp hollows. Others prefer the warmer, drier ridges. Animals choose different areas based on their needs, creating a mosaic of habitats within the larger forest. Understanding these microclimates helps explain why forests can be so diverse. They're not uniform environments, but collections of many smaller environments, each with its own conditions, its own character. To walk through a forest with attention to these subtle changes is to feel how the landscape breathes, how it creates pockets of different worlds within itself. Some forest plants bloom only once every several years, waiting for perfect conditions. Not all plants follow annual cycles. Some forest species bloom irregularly, waiting sometimes for years until conditions are exactly right. Certain bamboo species are famous for this, blooming synchronously once every 40, 60, or even 120 years. When they do bloom, every plant of that species flowers at the same time, regardless of where they are, even if they're growing on different continents. Scientists still don't fully understand how they coordinate this, what internal clock allows them to wait decades and then flower together. But the strategy seems to work. By overwhelming potential seed predators with a sudden abundance of seeds all at once, many survive to grow into the next generation. These long waits and sudden blooms remind us that not all life follows the rhythms we're familiar with. Some cycles play out across human lifetimes, patient and persistent in ways that dwarf our brief attention. Certain trees can survive being completely buried in sand or snow. In some environments, trees face the possibility of being buried, sometimes multiple times in their lives. Sand dunes can shift, covering trees. Heavy snowfall can bend and bury shrubs and small trees. But many species can survive this. They enter a kind of waiting state, their buried parts protected from cold or wind. When the sand shifts or the snow melts, they emerge and continue growing. Some trees even seem to benefit from occasional burial, the covering protecting them from harsh conditions, and then, when they emerge, leaving them in enriched soil. It's another adaptation to harsh environments, another way that trees endure the seemingly unendurable. They can be buried and still live, waiting under sand or snow for the world to uncover them again. Forest edges are biodiversity hotspots where two worlds meet. The place where a forest meets a meadow, a field, or a body of water is called an edge. And these edges are among the most biologically rich parts of the landscape. They combine elements of both environments. Birds that nest in trees but feed in open areas favor edges. Plants that need sun but also shelter grow best there. Mammals use edges as travel corridors and feeding areas. The result is that edges often contain more species than either the forest interior or the open area alone. They're transition zones, places of mixture and overlap, where the rules of both worlds apply. Of course, human activity has created far more forest edges than existed naturally, through clearing and fragmentation. And not all edges are equal. But in their natural form, edges remind us that boundaries are not barriers, but meeting places where diversity flourishes. Some forest animals are active only during twilight, never in full day or night. Not all animals are strictly diurnal or nocturnal. Some are crepuscular, active primarily during the twilight hours of dawn and dusk. Many deer, rabbits, and certain birds follow this pattern. During the middle of the day, they rest. Through the night, they rest. But in the soft light of dawn and dusk, they emerge, feeding and moving. This strategy offers advantages. Predators that hunt by sight struggle in low light. Temperatures are often milder during twilight. And there's less competition with strictly diurnal or nocturnal species. For humans, these crepuscular creatures are easy to miss. We're usually indoors during the prime times for their activity. But if you walk a forest trail at dawn or dusk, you enter their world, seeing glimpses of a forest alive with creatures that exist in the in-between times, neither day nor night, but something else entirely. Forests can exist in complete darkness at their bases while their canopies bask in sun. In the tallest forests, the disconnect between canopy and floor is extreme. At the top, leaves bask in direct sunlight. Temperatures warm, conditions bright and dry. At the bottom, it's a different world entirely. Dark, cool, humid, with light levels so low they're measured not in percentages, but in fractions of a percent. This creates two almost separate ecosystems sharing the same space. Canopy species rarely descend. Floor species rarely climb. They live vertically separated, occupying different layers of the same forest, as though they were different countries. This stratification is part of what allows forests to be so diverse. By stacking habitats vertically, forests create many more niches than a flat landscape could. It's three-dimensional complexity, layers of life rising from darkness into light. And now, as we near the end of our very long journey through the forests of the world, perhaps your breathing has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have finally closed. Perhaps sleep has already begun to pull you under, gentle and irresistible. Let it come. Let the forest hold you in your mind. The soft moss underfoot, the filtered light through leaves, the distant call of birds, the rustle of wind in branches. All of it is still there, even as you rest. The forests continue growing, breathing, changing, enduring. They were here long before you were born. They will be here long after you're gone. And in their constancy, in their patience, in their quiet strength, there is something deeply comforting. You are part of this world, part of the forest, part of the great cycle of life that flows through every tree, every leaf, every breath. Rest now. The forest will still be there when you wake. And if you found peace in these words, if this journey has helped you ease towards sleep, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a thought in the comments. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there is nothing more to do. Just breathe. Just rest. Just let the forest cradle you in green arms. Good night. Sleep well. And may your dreams be filled with trees.